I'm Mike.
I'm Jason.
This is Snake Envy. So we're going to do our feeding tip, and I can already see the comments. I think there's going to be some okay boomers, you guys are just not open to change, and you're just stuck in your ways, and anything new you're going to poo-poo. It's not that at all. We're actually usually very open to new things and people trying and experimenting. But I think our big thing is, are we over complicating simple things? Are we making it harder for beginners? Is there really a need to overcomplicate things? I think that's usually where we're coming from. Because a lot of times when we talk to people out there that are struggling or can't get their snake to eat or whatever it is, a lot of times there's way too much stuff.
I know, and we just want to simplify things.
And we're just saying, hey, dial it back, make it easier. And usually the snakes respond very well to that. So having said that, let's talk about feeding charts. I hear this brought up a lot online. So for those who don't know, you measure your snake, weight, you weigh your snake, you weigh the prey, and you want to be within a certain percentage. It's usually 10 to 15% of the weight of the snake for the weight of the prey. Now, have you at any point ever along the way tried one of these charts? They're fairly new, but they've been around for a while.
I'm not like any of these new charts, but like when I was first into this, I had feeding charts. Yeah.
And how did it go?
It was fine. It was like the reason I don't do it anymore is because it was data that I never used. Like I never went back and reflected on it. Yeah. So I don't do it.
So I have to be honest, I've never used them. I've never seen the point. Now, a couple things I would say. These charts really originated in the slower metabolism species, like python, boa. Originally, that's kind of who they were intended for. And those of us that were keeping primarily colubrids, high metabolism species, I think it applied less. But they've expanded into the colubrid world. Now, to be fair, I don't know if everybody's adjusted the percentage based on metabolism. So to be fair, I'm ignorant there. But the problem I see with it is, number one, overcomplicating things for beginners. If you have one snake and you're going to weigh your snake every week or every 2 weeks or whatever, when you order a shipment of prey, they're going to tell you, like, they range from this to this. So immediately you're going to have to sort out all your prey by weight.
Yeah. And
make sure you're kind of going smallest to biggest. I tend to do that anyway. Just eyeball it, but occasionally I've taken a bag of hoppers, for example, and I've kind of divided them into bigger and smaller, like maybe 2 sizes. Just because as my snakes grow, I know I'm giving them the bigger instead of the smaller. But if you're doing that for 20 different snakes and trying to keep it all straight and the weights of everything, but if you're going to go through and weigh a shipment of prey and you have 20 snakes, I mean, a lot of extra work, as I see it, for very little benefit. I mean, if you just use the match prey to the widest part of the snake, add a little for fast metabolism species, and maybe leave it as is for smaller metabolism species. It's worked great for me for 40 years, and feed 2 when they're in between.
Yeah, multiple prey. Yeah.
Doesn't that just make sense? And it's simple and it's easy.
Yeah, it's easy. I was a freaking nerd I was so into this shit. Like, I was. Yeah. When you get in this hobby, it pulls you in, and a lot of us just go in, and we go in deep and heavy, and it consumes a lot of us. And no, it did with me. I was obsessed when I first started. The first so many years, I still get the excitement out of that. But the data I never would use it. And so the only time I really use feeding charts anymore is stubborn feeders like gray banded kings, stuff that are hard to get feeding. That's where I like to keep track of stuff, because
But you're keeping more track of who ate and who
Yes.
didn't.
Yeah.
More so than what did the prey
Yes.
weigh versus the
and
snake.
I don't weigh anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't weigh snakes.
I don't even have a
unless-
scale.
Yeah, we talked about it recently. I'll weigh a snake if I'm worried that it's losing weight, but no, I don't weigh snakes typically. That's another thing, maybe generational, where for you and I kind of eyeball the length of the snake in the enclosure and say, oh yeah, it's 4 feet that way, and it's, yeah, that snake's about 6.5 feet long. There are other people who will literally drive themselves crazy trying to figure out methods for weighing it or measuring it precisely. And the same way with weights. A lot of people are obsessed with, what does my snake weigh? Yeah, that I've never seen the need to do that. You kind of look at a snake and it's either healthy or it's obese or maybe it's a little thin. The other thing is snakes, when they go through growth spurts, they'll typically grow long and then fill in, and then grow long and fill in.
Yeah.
So it's at some points they do look maybe a little thin and then they catch up, but that's part of the growing. And I'm curious whether a chart and weighing the snake and doing all that would be better than eyeballing it when a snake's kind of in that thin spurt. But I do think there's a generational component. I think when you and I got started, it was less about everything having to be just so and documenting everything. Sounds like you got that way a little bit. But for me, it's always been more about feel, about gut, about, trying different things and just see what works best, but not really putting data points on any of it. I do know there's a lot of young people today who are obsessed with, what can I write down? What can I put in a chart? And I do think that's part of it. I think some of it is generational. These are kids that grew up with Excel spreadsheets. We didn't.
I didn't. I mean, that's your thing. That's your thing. Like,
yeah. And if that is something that really drives you and helps motivate you, I have no problem with it at all. I just wish sometimes we would let beginners ease in, do some simple things, and then, hey, once you're feeling good, once everything's going well, get out there, experiment, try different things, see what works, and see if you notice any positive or negative differences. But the boomer in me, yes, says, I'm not going to fix something that ain't broke. I've had healthy and good weight snakes now for 40 years. I don't see the need to switch it up. And I don't think it's going to result in any kind of improvement.
Yeah, I'm old school, but it's like I'm old school and I do things that work for me. But it's like I'm pretty adaptive and I'm pretty open-minded. I just know what works for me. So, and even the new guys out there, you're gonna figure it out. It just, like I said, it's kind of, it consumes you when you first get in this hobby and you want to do all the little things, and it's fine. I just, make it work.
But particularly in the beginning, there's nothing wrong with keeping it simple.
And feeding charts, like, especially when you're starting out, it can be useful, I feel like.
My one concern, though, is have feeding charts adapted, for the variety of species? Or are people kind of taking a one-size-fits-all chart that was kind of designed for the python world and trying to say, okay, do the same thing for your king snake, your rat snake, your bull snake? It's not going to correlate. A lot of those slower metabolism species, pythons in particular, they're shaped weird. And it's easy for them to become obese because they are have that slower metabolism. They also look weird. They're built weird. Sometimes they have much bigger bodies than heads. And my green tree python is all kinds of weird. He's a triangle shape, and he's got a big head and a tiny neck and a big body and a tiny tail. And they're just built they're adapted in ways that a lot of colubrids aren't. So how well all that correlates, I'm not exactly sure. But I know in the slower metabolism world, that's what the charts were for, was to guard against snakes becoming obese, because some of them, quite frankly, are thicker and bigger in the middle than really their metabolism and everything else would suggest. So maybe you're overfeeding if you're going, judging by body size alone. That doesn't necessarily correlate to the colubrid world, where they can burn through a 25% bigger than their midsection meal in 3 days, and they've already pooped. And meanwhile, some of these slower metabolism snakes, they probably should be eating every 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks. So that's what we used to do. We used to back off on the frequency for those slower metabolism species. Now the weight charts, you're feeding them a little more frequently, but smaller meals. So anyway, that would be one of my questions for all of you out there. Have these charts caught up to this in the sense that they've adapted now for multiple species? Because that's important too. If you're feeding a king snake or a bull snake on ratios that are kind of intended for a ball python, probably not going to work.
Yeah.
Snake's probably not getting enough food. Maybe one day on feeding day, we'll kind of take our eyeballs, our eyeball assessment of what size prey a snake should get. Maybe we'll weigh them and we'll say, hey, how close is our eyeball to the charts?
That's a good idea.
Maybe we're doing the same thing, but we're doing it a different way.
I would be interested to see how that shakes out.
I'll see if I can find a bull snake chart. Mm-hmm. But that's the thing. The charts that I have seen personally are not specific to species. So that's partly what I'm curious about, is how many different charts are out there. If there's only 1 or 2 and everybody's trying to put it among both slow and fast metabolism, I don't see how that works.
Do what works for your animals.
Yeah, the goal is healthy snakes and snakes that are not obese. For our topic today, we're just going to update you guys a little bit on some of the snakes that we were talking about last year as they were born, and some of the holdbacks Jason's had, and show you guys what's going on with some of those snakes he was really excited about a year ago. Show you how they're growing, how they're coloring out.
Yeah. Yep. We got a couple of them that are even older, like 2 years old.
Yeah, a couple years old. The other thing, and I was just telling Jason before we started to record, I'm seeing a lot of talk lately about Kunashir Island. These are the Japanese rat snakes.
It came on heavy, yeah.
They are becoming more and more popular. So we're going to show you a couple of those, because they vary in color from green to blue.
Yeah.
Some things in between.
My female's greener.
Yeah.
Than the boy.
Jason's got some of each. But tell everybody just about them in general, because they really are an easy species to care for.
Yeah, they seem to thrive with my North American colubrids, the same temps. One thing, their scalation is one thing that I think is neat. They have, especially on the lower back end of the body, it just gets really kind of busy with scales. They kind of get smaller or whatever down there. Yeah, they're super interesting.
They have one of those patterns where, at a glance, it doesn't look like much, and then you look at it,
and then you see it. Yeah,
there is a lot going on, and similar to bull snakes and other rat snakes, where an individual scale can have 3 or 4 different colors within it, kind of that granite look. And these Kunashirs, it's the same way. You look at them up close and it's like, wow, there is a lot going on.
Yeah, and I last year was my first year with producing any. I haven't figured out which ones turn greener or bluer or what, I haven't got to that yet, and I don't know frankly, I don't know if that's possible. I don't know what there is.
If you know, let us know. Yeah, but is there a tell on the Neos whether they're going to go green or blue?
Yeah, I would love to know.
Because right now, we haven't been promising people one way or the other, just that they can go either way. So yeah, if you know a tell, that would be fantastic. So let's do that. Let's show everybody some snakes over the past year or two that you were excited about when they hatched. We've got a paradox, for example. But let's also show people these Kunashirs and show them just how vibrant, how exciting they are in terms of the way they look. But they're one of these exotic Asian snakes that are actually just as easy to keep as the stuff we have here in North America. When you think back over the last 1 or 2 breeding years, what were you most excited about that was a surprise? Where you just said, "Oh wow, I wasn't planning on that." Can you think of one that maybe jumps out? And did you hold any of that back?
I held back some. We've showed her off the wild-caught Alabama Texas rat.
Oh yeah,
She's so beautiful and colorful, and thank you for everybody's comments on her, and a lot of people are really liking that snake, and we want to show you what the babies look like, and they've changed a little bit over the course of a year.
Yeah.
Super. I'm interested to see how they turn out as adults.
Oh yeah.
Because they don't look anything like her.
Yeah, they change a lot. They don't look like her so far.
Not yet.
And of course, there's the gray bands from this last year that were on, Hypo and Ghost.
Yeah,
and
we can show some of those.
Lots of those. We'll remind you about those as well. But so anyway, let's take a little journey here and back over the last year or two, because we've got hatching season coming up.
Yeah, we are a week away.
A week away.
Less than a week away.
From milks, probably the first.
House snakes and milks.
House snakes and milks. We've had a lot of you asking about house snakes. Yes.
Oh, it's bad right now.
We're going to have about 40 of those coming up. So we'll have Neos here soon. All right. Let's go take a look.
Are those colors popping in that camera? Because they're popping in real.
Okay, now you can just see a little hint of what's supposed to be there color-wise. So explain to everybody what's going on with this.
Well, we gotta fly. So this is a ghost. This is an Anri and Hypo combo. In person, these blotches, that's purple. That's a weird, it messes with your eyes a little bit in person, right?
It does, because, and for those who are unfamiliar with like a Blair's phase alterna, those lighter bands should be orange.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's kind of a bluish.
The snake is gray with black, and then the blotch, the saddles, the blotching is a purplish, bluish, weird. It's hard to capture.
So the darker ones, they would be gray like they are, but normally those lighter ones would be orange, varying shades of orange. So interesting.
We'll show a couple of these real quick. Let's show this. Here's a Hypo. Reduced black. Now this thing reminds me of a Hypo too. I'm not feeding you, buddy. These guys want to eat everything. But this kind of looks like a Hypo too, not the same, but it's reduced black. Yeah. Look how reduced the black is. And she's got the indicator too. She's a carrier. And so this is technically a normal, but in terminology, it could be a Hypo. I don't think it...
Wow.
I don't know. We're just going to have to play around with them and see what happens. But interesting two looks. That could be two, they both look Hypo, but different types of Hypo.
Yeah.
This is more probably a T positive in reality.
And this is going to be a great project going forward. We've had some people here in the shop looking and have done everything they could to try to pry those away from Jason.
And Anri here, and everybody loves this girl, and I do too, but.
Same thing. You can tell which band or which saddle is which band is which. But that's amazing. Now, which locality is this?
There's no locality because
No locality on these.
Because it was black gap, but it's been outcrossed with long blotch, so they're not in the locality.
That's right.
And that might turn some people off, but I'll tell you what, I kept 8 of his babies out of the clutch. Every one of those 8, the first try, I fed them. Like, black gaps don't do that.
Well, Alterna in general, you don't typically have 100% success.
Well, they're outcrossed, and so extremely healthy. Genetically, they're diverse, and you see it. They're all different looking. So wow. I think it's awesome.
Amazing.
Let's see if we can get bit. This is from the Alabama Texas rat, the mother that we had. This is one of the siblings, and this was bred to, look at this bluish gray down here. It's starting to get that dark coloring what the mother has.
Yeah.
That gray is starting to come through more and more. I can't wait to see these as adults.
Texas rats, I mean, of all the
this is a cool snake anyway.
Rats, yeah, they're one of my favorites.
Well, all right. This snake is beautiful. I don't know if you've seen this. Have you seen this lately? It's got a little bit of a nose rub, but this is where the pied blotch was. It was like the size of a penny or a nickel or something. It's really faded out. But look at this, like these oranges and yellows coming through here. She's, for an albino whiteside, exceptionally nice in my opinion. Wow. I'm generally not a huge fan of albino whiteside, but she's turning out great. But that pied marking is kind of faded away almost completely. This was a blot when she was born. This was like the white side was missing in that one patch. And so you got the yellows and oranges of an albino pop right through. We'll have to see if we can find some hatchling video pics of her as well.
Now, just so that I'm not confused, is this the paradox snake or is this a different one?
Sorry, it's a paradox.
This is the paradox.
Was I saying pied?
You did say pied.
I'm wrong.
Okay. Okay.
It's paradox.
I was wondering if I was a little confused.
Sorry, I'm just not thinking. Anyways, paradox. So
paradox. And paradox, all that meant was that there were no normal colors except for this spot right here when she was born. Kind of in the middle of the screen right there behind her head. It still stands out.
Yeah.
But it is starting to blend in.
It really blends in
with everything else that's going on.
So, paradox. And I don't know how. We'll see what happens. Probably, most likely nothing will happen, but we'll try it anyway.
There is a theory out there that paradox has to do with twins that fuse in the eggs. So you should have been twins, ends up one, and like that paradox might be evidence of the second snake. So that's one of the interesting things about paradox.
So she's a little lean from laying eggs about 3 weeks ago. So she's a little bit lean on the lean side. But here's what I'm talking about, those busy scalation down here. Look at this tail. I've never seen anything like that in a North American colubrid. It's very different. But I love it. And you can see the pattern in her more so than the male. These blotches in it. I don't know if it's showing up in the camera or not.
Looks amazing on screen.
When she fills out, she gets really green.
Yeah, you can see a lot of the green on her head and her tail. She looks more blue in the middle.
Yeah,
but
bluish in through here.
Yeah.
The boy's a little bigger, and He's a little more blue, in my opinion. Of course he's in the blue, but
much more blue. You can see that right off, even though he's about to go into shed.
His eyes are fully.
Yeah,
we caught him.
But you can still see, how much more blue, like particularly through his head, he's much more blue than the female.
He is stunning, as you know, when he's
not in shed.
Yeah, but he is a cool animal. I love these guys. I didn't know exactly when I bought them. I was just like, it was just kind of a fun little project, but. And then this guy's tail, the scalation down here. Look how busy it gets in this tail and lower body.
Amazing.
Look how busy that is, and it's lined in black.
Yeah.
And these guys are really docile. I've never had one bite me. Hatchlings or adults.
They have a great temperament, and it's amazing that snakes on opposite sides of the world and their care is very similar.
Well, Japan is a cool, I think it's
very mountainous.
Yeah, it's not like, Japan's not that much different than here as far as temps. And here's the mother of that one rat snake that we showed off just a minute ago. So we're expecting those babies to turn out like her. We'll see with time. She's really, and she just laid 2 weeks ago, so she's only had a couple meals since laying. So when she was full, I mean, she looks pretty good for laying a couple weeks ago, but those colors are really popping when she was filled out.
Yeah, Texas rats are
I love the little white, like the white in these. It's kind of neat.
A lot going on.
She looks like she's going in the shed too. She's not as vibrant as normal. And then the father of the rat snakes was this guy. Might as well just show him why we're here. And these Lucy's do not have bug eyes. I imported these from Stunning Snakes out of Italy, which is funny because they're North American snakes. But none of the babies, none of their offspring have bug eyes. I'm not a huge fan of white snakes, but I really love these guys. Typically, I'm not a huge fan of white snakes. Even the band. Just kidding, I like the band. I like the band just fine.
So very cool. Thanks for showing us those. It's fun to show people, a year, 2 years later what's going on.
And we're known for pits, but we got other stuff too.
Got some great stuff. And as I said, everybody who's been asking about house snakes, we're about a week away. Yeah. And then how long typically before they become available for sale in terms of getting the meeting and
they're really small, and the eggs are they're like marbles. Like, they're tiny babies. I like the way I get them started. I've heard people complain about that they can be tough, but I haven't had any issues. I usually wait about 2 weeks after they're born, and then I'll offer them. But what I've been doing is, and luckily I have a friend that's a rodent breeder. So I can get little runt pinkies, and I get live ones, and they go crazy over live. Way more reactive over the live prey than the frozen thawed. And they switch over real quick. They don't, it's like, once they start eating, they just don't care. They just want to eat everything. But I start them out with live because they react better off of it. And I can get access to little runts and stuff, so.
I've got a pair of the double albinos at home that we're raising up that will breed, and I was telling Jason, it's almost painful to watch these. They are so tiny when they are born.
Yeah.
And it's almost painful to watch the pinkies go down because you can see the outline of the pinkies' legs. Like, they are so tiny, and even with the tiniest pinkies, you see the entire shape
Yeah.
of the pinky
But-
going down their body.
but-
But they eat really well.
They eat real well.
And they aren't bothered by that
and once
at
you
all.
get like two or three little mils in them, they really blossom up. They
Yeah,
grow.
they do.
They do a little spurt.
Yeah.
And
They grow well.
Yeah, they grow fast. And so I like to get like 3 to 4 meals in them before I sell them.
Before
So
you
it's
sell 'em. So it's
usually
about 6 weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
Very cool. All right. So for those of you out there who have been asking about, well, let's just say 7-8 weeks to be safe, but we're getting close.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks.